Hi, I'm Pam East, and today I am going to show you how to make your own stamps using photopolymer plates. Photopolymer is one of these processes that's like 10 times harder to describe than it is to do. I am going to give you a quick overview, but don't worry if you're confused. As I go through the process, it's going to get a lot clearer. It really is very, very easy. So what is photopolymer? Photopolymer is a plastic plate that has been coated with a light-sensitive emulsion. And that emulsion is sensitive to UV light only. What's important to remember is that UV is not only in a UV nail cure lamp, it is also in the sun. So it's really important that you do not try and do photopolymer process near a window during the day or out of doors, because even though you've taken it out of the UV lamp, if it's getting sun, it's continuing to cure. So make sure you do this in an area away from windows. Usually your room lights are not UV. You don't need to worry about your overhead lamps. You don't have to do this in the dark. The next step is evaluating your art. So you have some artwork that you want to make into a stamp. Do you want that image to be embossed? In other words, when you make your clay piece, is that image going to come up out of the background, or is it going to be impressed down into the background? That's going to depend on whether or not the image is black or white. So when you look at your art, remember that anything that is black in the image is going to be embossed. It's going to be raised up on the finished clay piece. Anything that is white is going to be impressed down into the clay piece. So if you look at these examples, here I have a black image on a clear background, and I use that to make this photopolymer plate. So you can see that wherever it was black, that's what washed away when I did the photopolymer. And then when I impress it into my clay, I'm just going to use Silly Putty as an example here, you're going to see that that is going to be raised up in your final piece. On this piece, the background was all black and the image was white or clear, as the case may be, because these are printed on transparency. And that created a raised stamp, which is going to press into the clay. And that looks like that. So you end up with an impressed image. This is everything that you're going to need to make photopolymer plates for yourself. And we've gathered it all together into a kit for you. You need a UV lamp. You need an exposure stack. Now, what the exposure stack is a way of getting the photopolymer and your transparency tightly fitted together so that you can put them into your UV nail lamp. And I will be showing you how to use that. And that has the backing board, a piece of foam, non-UV glass, and 4 binder clips. You also get a nail brush and a toothbrush for washing out the photopolymer, a sheet of photopolymer, and I have included a sample of my sample sheet that you can work with while you're learning. You also get a few extra sheets of transparency to print for yourself, and there will be written instructions. Here's an example of a transparency sheet with some samples. You can see I've done them both on a clear background with black images and on a black background with clear images. So this is a transparency. And it's going to make a difference which side I use, how it looks. When you go to print your transparency, it works best if you print on a laser printer. Inkjet printers tend not to be dark enough. So if you don't have access to a laser printer, consider taking your image to a copy shop and having them print it for you so that you get a very black. The other option is to print 2 and double it, but that means you have to line it up very carefully. You can add registration marks to help with that. So those are your options for your transparency. All right, let's start by setting up our first example. And for our first example, I'm going to do the clear background with the black image, which means that this is going to be embossed. And I'm going to go ahead and do this one. So I'll cut this out. And when you're doing a clear background, you can cut very close to the image. And it's different when we get to the black background. I'll talk about that when we get there. But for this one, you can be quite close to the image when you cut it out. Anytime there's a clear background. All right, so there we've got our little piece of art. And now I need a piece of photopolymer. And I'm going to pull out the photopolymer here. It comes in a 8.5 by 11 sheet, but it's pretty easy to cut. This is a plastic backed material. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use, these are joist chin scissors, or you could use any metal shears to cut your photopolymer. And I'm going to leave a little border around it. I don't want it to be too close. And there's my stamp. And I'll put the rest of this away. You do not want to leave this out in the light. You want to keep this in a dark place and keep it protected. So you can see that something came up when I cut it, and that is the plastic coating. The plastic coating is on the front side of the plate. It does have a front and a back. This is the back. You don't expose the back. You expose the front. So when you peel off the plastic, that is where your image goes, on that side. So there it is. And now we're going to assemble our exposure stack. So this is the exposure stack. And don't use the side that's cut or that's engraved. Use the other side. And then put a piece of foam on that. This all comes with, when you buy the exposure stack, you get all of this. Set that on there. Now I want to get it pretty far in there, so I'm going to go a little to the end. And then I'm going to cover this with glass. This is non-UV protecting glass. If there was a UV coating on this glass, then this process would not work. And then I'm going to clamp it with the binder clips. And this makes it all fit really tightly together. And that's what you want. You want it to be super tight together. You do not want the clips to overlap your photopolymer, because if they do, they're going to block the light and you're going to get an outline of the binder clip. So there it is, all set up and ready to go. And I'm going to put it into the UV lamp. And I am going to set it for 30 seconds. And now I'm going to cover that up because you don't want to have UV light in your eyes. So we'll let that go for 30 seconds and we'll come back. All right, the timer's done. It shut itself off. And now we're ready to wash it out. You want the water to be hot. So I use hot tap water. It should be hot enough that it feels hot to your hand without burning your hand. So I just use hot tap water, like if you're washing dishes, that kind of hot. So now I'm going to go ahead and take this out of the exposure stack. So you notice I have it out in the light. That's because your regular room lights don't have UV, so this is fine. And sometimes that'll stick to the glass, that's fine. And I'm going to just drop that in the water and get this other stuff out of the way. Make sure that you do not clean your, wash out your photopolymer over your glass. I mean, sometimes you'll set the glass like that, but then you'll get little sprays of photopolymer on there and it sticks and it makes it spotty. So do get this out of the way. All right, you might be able to see it starting to come up. I'm going to start washing it out, and I start with the nail brush. I usually do this on a plastic tray that I got at the dollar store so that I'm not getting water all over my desk. But today we're just going to get the desk wet. So I'm going to come over because I need to get some pressure. So I need to set it down and I need to really rub on it. I'll use a circular motion and I turn it so I make sure I'm going in all different directions. And I'll rinse it out periodically. And you can see it starting to come up now. And as I get down into it, I'll switch to the toothbrush to get into the detail. But I start off with the nail brush to get most of it out. And now I'll get in with the toothbrush, and that's going to get into the finer detail and clear it out. Basically, I want to get all the way back to the clear backing so that I know I'm getting a full impression. So there we go. We've got it pretty well clean. If it starts getting hazy, let me dry it off and see. I can usually tell when I dry it off. Don't use a paper towel. Paper towel leaves bits of paper towel in the photopolymer plate, and that is not good. So you can see that it's where I've washed it out is mostly clear. It still looks a little sticky to me. So I'm going to give it one more go with the toothbrush, and then it'll be done. That looks pretty good. All right, so once I have got it washed out, I am going to dry it, and I want to get it completely dry. And so I'm just going to let it air dry, and when it's completely dry, I'm going to come back and re-expose it. All right, this is dry now, and I'm going to re-expose it. The whole thing ends up just a little bit sticky, and you need to finish exposing it to get rid of the stickiness. So I'm going to put it back into the UV lamp. It does not need to go into the exposure stack again. It just goes directly in. This is just a little UV nail cure lamp. It does come in the kit. Okay, so that is finished curing. And it's ready to use now. So I can go ahead and I can show you what that's going to look like. And voila, we've got a nice little self-made stamp. For the second example, I'm going to do a black background, and this time I'm going to do words because words can be tricky. I'm going to go ahead and cut around this. Now, unlike with the clear background, you want to leave a pretty good margin around your words. You don't want to cut really close to them. Otherwise, you're going to have an edge really close to your words that are going to make it hard to roll out clay on it. So the amount of room I have to roll out clay is determined by the border around the words. It's also really important, I didn't say this before, it's really important that everything be dry when you start, very dry, because the minute water hits the photopolymer plate, it starts to dissolve. And you don't want that to happen until after you expose the plate. So I made sure everything was dry from my previous one before I started this one. So this is going to go on here. Might go this way. Does it go this way? No, it goes this way. All right. I'm going to go ahead and cut out a piece. And remember, I'm going to peel this off, and that is the top. Now, this is the important part when you're doing words. It isn't necessary to reverse your words when you're doing your artwork in your computer, but when you go to put the transparency on the photopolymer, you need to turn it over so that the words are backwards. If they aren't, they're going to be backwards in your metal clay. So if you want your words to read forwards, then they need to be backwards on the photopolymer. All right, so we're going to go ahead and set this up. I've got my board, I've got my little piece of foam, I've got my little words here. I'm going to do it this way. And remember that this, I know this sounds obvious, but your little transparency does need to go on top of the photopolymer. I have had students try and do it this way. That doesn't work. You have to have the light needs to go through the transparency onto the photopolymer. So I've got that on there. And then this to keep it nice and tight. And then I'm going to clamp it all together. Now this time, I don't actually care if the clip goes over it because this is black anyway. And it's not going to make any difference. As long as it doesn't go over the clear part, I'm okay. So there we go. I've got it ready to go. And I'm going to expose it for the same 30 seconds I did last time. All right, so this is done. And that is ready to be washed out. While I get my hot water, I'm just going to cover this up. Okay, let's go ahead and wash this out. All right, don't forget to put your glass out of the way so that it doesn't get the polymer stuff on it. And let's see how that's doing. And I'm going to start scrubbing it out. Now this time, I am scrubbing out the background, which is a little bit different than scrubbing out the foreground. So in a minute, I'm going to show you how the background is going to clear out. I'm not really going over the words too much. I'll come back and get those with the toothbrush. I don't want to scrub the words as long as I scrub the background, so I'm just kind of going around it. And you can see that it's starting to clear out. All right, do you see how it's getting nice and clear? You'll also feel it. So this feels like plastic and this feels slimy. So you want to keep washing it out until you've gotten all the slimy parts away. So mostly washed out now. I'm going to go over the letters a little more now. You don't want to scrub on those letters too much because they can get scratched up. That's why I was mostly going around it. And now I'm going to come in with the toothbrush and I'm going to get more detail work done on the letters. This will get between the letters and into the little middles of the O's and things like that. And it's soft enough that it won't scratch the letters. And there it is. We've got it all nice and backwards. And we're just going to dry it off, and then we're going to re-expose it. All right, so it's dry now, and we're going to go ahead and do the final exposure. I'm going to throw it in here, and I'm going to give it that 60 seconds. All right, that's finished, and it's all ready to use. And so let's check it out with the Silly Putty. And there we go. Your letters are now forwards. Let's go ahead and make something out of our new photopolymer stamp. So I make sure I have all my tools ready before I get out my clay, and I'm going to go ahead and put a little release agent on the stamp so that it doesn't stick. And I'm going to go ahead and put a little on this roller. And now I'm ready. So I want to start by pre-rolling the clay a little thicker than I want my final roll. So I'm going to use a 6-card thickness, and I'm going to roll this out. There we go. And now I'm going to, if you pre-roll your clay like this and have it nice and flat before you put it on your stamp, you get a nice crisp image. So the photopolymer material itself is the same thickness as 4 cards thick. So now the stamp and the frame are all the same height. And I'm going to raise that up 3 cards for my piece. I'm going to put that on here, and we'll get that rolled out. I always start in the middle. Never start on one end and go to the other because you'll stretch it too far. If you start in the middle, you'll get a better roll. All right, let's see how that came out. That looks fabulous. That looks really good. So let's go ahead and make some kind of a little pendant out of that. I think if I go this way, that looks really cool. All right, so there it is. And I need some holes so that I can hang this later. So I'm going to use these little, little precision hole cutters. Whoop, come on. There we go. So I've got little holes in them. And now I'm going to put it on a dome because I think it'll look better a little bit domed. And there we go. Now I'm just going to dry that and it'll be ready to fire. All right, so it's a little bit different when you're doing one where you have a cleared out background. The first thing I want to do is trim away this frame because that's just going to get in our way. So we're going to get rid of that excess frame. All right, so now it's just flat plastic all the way to the edge. And I'm going to go ahead and do some release agent on that. I don't want too much, so I'll just put a little on this toothbrush. A little more than that. All right, so I've got that ready, but I don't put it down. I'm not going to roll on it like I do with a texture. I'm just going to go ahead and roll my clay to the 3 thickness. Hopefully I have enough here to do what I want to do. That looks like it's going to work. Yep, it's going to work. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cut this out. Now I'm going to take this and I can position it exactly where I want it. And it's very easy to position when you can see through it like this. And I'm going to come over just a little bit. And once I have it positioned, I'm going to take an acrylic snake roller and I'm going to gently press. And then when I peel that out, my letters look perfect. Just like the other one, I'm going to add some holes so that I can hang it. And then I'm going to put it on a little bit of a dome. Ta-da! Here, let me get that over a little bit. And then those just need to dry, and then I'll be ready to finish and fire them. So here's the finished piece from the texture that I did and with the photopolymer, and it's a fun piece. I think it's really cute. I just added some black patina and polished up the high points, and that was it. It was ready to go. With the words, I did a mirror finish, and I think that that is also a really fun piece. This would be a fun piece to wear. I would add a chain to it similarly to how I did this one, and I think it would get a lot of positive feedback if you were wearing this. I hope you've enjoyed learning how to make your own stamps using photopolymer today, and I hope you will enjoy this kit that we put together for you, and I will see you next time.